Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing the notion that Thailand could, quote-unquote, lock out travelers from Thailand again. And I'm making this video kind of on the anniversary of, a year ago here in Thailand, we saw really the entire country go into really serious lockdown in the sense that basically no one could get in. So going back a year, going back into May 2020, even Thai nationals could not easily get into Thailand, if at all. And they instituted some of these rules regarding certificates of entry and things, and kind of shook up the immigration regime, at least presumably in the short term. Hopefully the short term is shorter rather than longer, but they kind of changed the game, if you will. They kind of shook things up. And a question that a couple of people have asked me, and it's always kind of interesting, the way that people seem to kind of operate on, it's like their antenna are all on the same frequency. I'll get a question and then I'll get another question very similar and sometimes almost exactly the same regarding certain aspects of immigration to Thailand, regarding certain policies and things of this nature. And the basic question is, would Thailand ever lock us out again? And we're talking about this broadly. Okay, this is everybody. You can even include Thai nationals. And the answer to that is, well, if they determine circumstances are similar to May 2020, perhaps. I think it's pretty unlikely, especially now that Thailand has a pretty good handle on how they're going to deal with things in a world, if a pandemic ever comes up again. So, I'm hesitant to believe that they would do the type of lockout, if you will, that they did back in 2020. But they could. And by the way, the lockout we're talking about is at one point just no one could get in. And then sometime midsummer 2020, they came out and said, well, if you have a work permit or you're married to a Thai, you may be able to get in. And they kind of did this in phases. It started off only work permit holders, and then they did take pity on people that were married to Thais. That didn't happen immediately, by the way, or had Thai children. And then as time went on, they also started making arrangements for retirees. Retirees were kind of the last category that was sort of allowed in broadly before they started allowing tourists to come back to the kingdom. So, yeah, they could do it again. I think it's unlikely, again, because I think they have a pretty good handle on how they would handle something like this in the future. Not to be redundant there, but I think they have a good idea of how they would deal with this down the road. So I think something as, frankly, as broad as just locking everybody out might not happen again. But again, in true quarantine fashion, that's how you quarantine. You don't let anyone in. So maybe, perhaps it could happen again, although I kind of doubt it, at least in the relatively near foreseeable future.